Just breathing, becoming present. Thank you for being here today and keeping your divine appointment for your own personal growth, self-love, sense of community. And allow the didgeridoo to attune your body to a higher vibration. And I'll follow them with the meditation. Continuing to breathe, allowing your shoulders to relax, feeling your spine slightly curve, your neck elongating, tucking your chin a little bit, just so that your crown chakra is parallel to the ceiling, which opens up all of the energy centers. Our chakras are the vehicles in which the energy in our body moves. Keeping them clear, aligned, and bright is essential for the energy within us to flow with beauty and grace. Practicing now the Ho'oponopono breathing technique. We'll go in for the count of 7, hold for 7, release for 7, and then hold the empty for 7. We'll do this 3 times. At home you may wish to practice this a full 7 cycles. Breathing in for a count of 7. Hold. watch our breathing, our mind disengages, and we invite Spirit in. The Latin word for breath is inspiro, meaning that when we breathe, we are in spirit. And we recognize with a full embodiment this aspect of ourselves that we are indeed spirit, divine manifestations of an energy of all that is. And we exist as this energy prior to our earthly incarnation, during our earthly incarnation, and most certainly after our earthly incarnation. We exist as divine beings of light in perpetuity, and this is universal truth in all its glorious aspects. Taking a deep cleansing breath as we allow this truth to permeate every cell in our body. Opening our heart space, seeing that energy at the center of our heart expand, going a brilliant, white, luminescent light, replicating, embodying, emulating the energy of all that is, seeing that within ourselves we are a gathering place, a temple, and we are in each and in of ourselves a temple of light. Feeling the expansion of that light, recognizing and becoming aware of it leaving the bottom of our feet, touching the earth's core, going deep into the mantle, going to the center of the earth, touching the crystalline center, the core center of the earth, wrapping our light around this core center, becoming part of Mother Earth, the energy of Gaia, knowing that we are made up of the same universal energy and light, and therefore we have a beautiful, reciprocal, symbiotic relationship with each other. Taking a moment now to feel gratitude for the air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat, the clothes we wear, and the roof over our head. As we take in that deep breath that understands we are always, always living in a world of abundance, and this is universal truth. Feeling the energy coming back up, passing through our heart space, going up out of the top of our head, reaching into the top of this building and outward, going into the sky, into the Earth's atmosphere, beyond the atmosphere now, into our own star system, and moving that energy beyond our star system into the great vastness of the Milky Way, where exists over 400 billion planets and star systems, recognizing that our energy reaches far, far into all of these spaces, confirming that we are made up of the energy of all that is, and that our consciousness knows no boundaries, only those that we set upon it. Feeling the embodiment and the connection to the entire universal life force. Now bringing our energy back down into the awareness of our place in this third dimensional existence on Mother Earth. Do we now open our heart, spread that light all around the surface of the earth, connecting to, sending loving energy and embracing the entire earth atmosphere, the waters, seeing and being aware of our dependency on each other for life force energy. Coming back into our heart space now and seeing it expand 360 degrees in all directions, going miles and miles beyond our physical being. Do we now send this energy all around Mother Earth as we set our intention for peace, harmony, brotherhood, sisterhood, governments that bond and create unity, economic systems that flow with integrity and justice, clean energy that provides for us all, food organically grown that feeds every organism here on earth, and as Mother Nature would intend, a perfect balance, the laws of nature completely existing, and with our embodiments being of the highest vibration, the laws of attraction coming in, emulating peace, love, and kindness, and the laws of cause and effect, showing what a beautiful world we can live in, seeing this with our visions in our minds, creating this as we envision this, and setting the intention with Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu, repeating after me, Kirtan style. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. May all beings of creation live in peace, love, and joy, and so it is. Coming back into our place. Feeling the power of that intention staying with us and being written into every cell of our body, every neural pathway in our brain, every thought process we have going through all lifetimes, all incarnations, all vibrations, all realms, all space and time that we exist in. And it's so. Coming back to the room gently and gracefully, opening your eyes whenever you're ready. It just gets more powerful every time we do it, doesn't it? I have to remember to speak loudly. We get complaints that people can't hear us on the YouTube, so pardon me if I feel like I'm shouting at you. Each week, my guides give me a topic to share with you. And each week when I'm given this topic, on the surface it seems almost a little obvious, and perhaps without what I know to be its depth at the time the topic is given to me. And I noticed that last week when we talked about the dolphin energy, and I thought, what are we going to do? Be talking about how they should be free and not be subject to the nets in Japan, but we got something so completely different, didn't we? We got an attunement from the Dolphin Masters. And they gave me my topic for this week as being the Dalai Lama. And again I thought, well, everybody knows who the Dalai Lama is, and they know that he's a reincarnation of the previous ones, and that he stands for peace and compassion, and was given the Nobel Peace Prize in 1989 for the work that he's doing in such a peaceful fashion, attempting to restore Tibet to its individual state and not being a part of the People's Republic of China. And I heard once a few years ago from a woman woman that used to volunteer here, that she refused to buy anything that was made in China because she wanted to support the Dalai Lama. And I tend to think that the few handfuls of government officials are not responsible, or are the ones that are responsible, and not the 1.3 billion people that live there, for the change in the governmental situation. No more than the Americans are responsible for what the handfuls of our government officials do, waging war in the Middle East. The 99.9% is not the one who is directing all of the politics that are out there. And so I decided that in that moment, we have to recognize that the people of the world are quite different than that handful of those that have succumbed to the greed that are actually making the decisions. So I want to talk to you today about the Dalai Lama. Most people, you know that he is a reincarnation, correct? Everybody knows that. He is the 14th reincarnation. And they are called would I have it here? Where'd it go? A tulak. A tulak is somebody who reincarnates, and the Dalai Lama is not the only one that do this. Many of the high priests in the Tibetan Buddhism religion do this. They can be male, they can be female, but many of them do a process of what they call the mind transfer. And when they die, they intentionally go through a ceremony where they say, my mind will not transfer into the astral planes, but will seek out another being born and will transfer into that embodiment of that person. The Dalai Lama is simply the high priest of the Tibetan Buddhism religion, and so his incarnations are the transfer of the mindfulness of the high priest to the next high priest to the next high priest. And they're not doing something that we don't do. I mean, sometimes our consciousness goes into the astral plane and we decide to have it come into an incarnation. The main difference is they don't veil. And so they bring with them the continued knowledge and the understanding that they have done this. So when we do past life regressions, many times we go back and we get information from our previous lives. So the Dalai Lama and the other tulaks simply don't need to do past life regressions because they carry the wisdom with them in their heart with full knowledge. So the Dalai Lama, the term, the Dalai actually means ocean, and Lama means chief priest. And so it translates as ocean of wisdom, which is what you get when you keep on reincarnating and you keep that wisdom with you, fully embodied and fully remembered. And so the Dalai Lama, although he doesn't expressly talk about this, he has all of the full knowledge and wisdom of the 13 of his predecessors. And so this is why he's such a wise and peaceful and calm individual, as he carries that wisdom. When we incarnate and we fail, we leave all that wisdom behind us, and so we have to learn it again. He doesn't have to do that. Or any of the other tulaks that do the same thing. They simply may not be as high-ranking as he is. The Dalai Lama, his particular incarnation is the embodiment of the Bodhisattva. The Bodhisattva, Bodhi means enlightenment and Sattva means existence. So a Bodhisattva is an enlightened existence of the, I have to have this, the Avalokitesvara, which is the divine compassion. And so the Dalai Lama is the 14th embodiment or enlightened existence of the deity of compassion inside Buddhism. And so the deity of compassion, what we would call the laws of compassion, those places that we talked about when we talked about the laws of truth, there is a universal energy called the laws of compassion. And it has chosen to embody in a human form through the Dalai Lama. And that's why, have you ever been around him? Have you ever seen him on television or on YouTube? I had the honor once of seeing him several years ago in person at UCI. And he walks in the room, the vibration of the room completely changes. And I hadn't developed or become aware of my clairvoyant abilities when I saw him. And there were people sitting around me going, "Oh, look at his aura. It's green and yellow and purple." And I couldn't see, and I was really annoyed because I would have loved to have seen it. Of course I had the ability, I just didn't know I had the ability. And so I believed I couldn't see it. But everybody was sitting there in these meditative positions. And he came out with his orange robes, and he was wearing a New York Yankees cap. And he was just so cute. And he sat there, and his translator was introducing him. And as his translator was making a very serious introduction, the Dalai Lama was getting comfortable, and he pulled out his cap, and he kind of tucked it and looked up, and everybody was giggling, and his translator turned and looked, and he said, "He's making fun of me because I'm taking too long introducing him, and he doesn't like all the accolades I'm giving him. So this is his way of telling me to stop talking and let him be present with you." But he did it with just his way of being comical with his cap. And this is the embodiment of compassion. To communicate everything that we need to communicate with a lightness of heart, without this heaviness. So when he decides to pass, and he gave an interview in September of 2011, and reiterated the same interview a month later in October of 2011. And he says, "I don't know if I'm going to reincarnate again. This may be the last." But he said, when I'm 90, which he was born in 1935, so he will be 90 in the year 2025. So 13 years from now, the Dalai Lama will go into a deep meditative state, and he will ask all the devas and the deity of the law of compassion if it is in the universal best interest for there to be a 15th Dalai Lama. And if he says at that time, those laws of compassion determine that there is cause for a 15th one, then when he dies, he will go through this exercise of setting the intention to transfer his mindfulness, all of his memory, to stay in that in-between place of the third dimension and the fourth dimension, that twilight between our dimension and the astral plane, and have it stay there so that it quickly and easily goes into a newborn boy. And he said, though, the 15th one might be a woman, which would be the first time. Usually the tulkas always reincarnate with the same sex. But because the Dalai Lama has always talked about that it is the woman who will come back into the female power and heal the earth, if he does come back, he said it might be a woman. Wouldn't that be something if the 15th Dalai Lama was a female, bringing back the balance of all the energies? He also said that if the People's Republic of China, still in the year 2025, occupied and Tibet was not free, that it would not incarnate in Tibet. All of the 14 Dalai Lamas, with the exception of one who was incarnated into Mongolia, have always been born in Tibet. But he said that it would be born in India or someplace near if the People's Republic of China is still occupied. And the reason he's saying this is the People's Republic of China are saying he doesn't have the right to choose who the next Dalai Lama is. They do. And he's saying this isn't a political thing. This is a spiritual thing. And he said, even I don't choose who gets the mindfulness. The universal energies and the laws of compassion are the ones that take that mindfulness as it exists and transfer it into a boy that is born, or in this case, possibly a female. And he said, this isn't something I can choose, so the government of China certainly can't choose it. And so the way it's discovered, are you familiar with the way they find out? They cremate the body, and all of the high priests look for the wind and the smoke, and they see the direction where the smoke is going. And then they all go into meditative states. It takes that wind smoke sometimes up to 2 years to actually have an incarnation, and it can take them up to 2 years to find it. The current Dalai Lama was 4 years old before they discovered him. And the high priests, there's a regent that takes over for the Dalai Lama during the period between his death and the next incarnation. And that regent that holds that space, nominated by all the high priestesses and priests there, meditate and get visions that guide them. And the regent in this case, in 1935, saw the village where the current Dalai Lama was living, saw the house of which it looked like, and was told the province, and they went out and they found him. And the family, of course, they were small farmers living in a very small house, and up the road came all of these high priests saying that their son was the next Dalai Lama. You can imagine their surprise. Joy and pride, but also coexistingly a sense of melancholy, because that means they were taking him away that day, and he would never be their son again. And so they have to lose their son on that day. And so what they do is they place on the floor in front of this 4-year-old boy artifacts, about 100 of them, with about 10 being those that belonged to the previous Dalai Lama. And they say, which of these are yours? And he said, that's mine, and that's mine, and that's mine. And he picked the 10 items that belonged to his previous incarnation. And through this recognition, then, they understand that he is indeed the one who has had the mindfulness transferred to him. And they take him back to the city of Lhasa, where he's then trained and schooled. And he didn't get the full recognition until he was 15 years old. How many people saw that lovely movie with gorgeous Brad Pitt, 7 Years in Tibet? Go and do the rental. A very nice movie that he learned what this young boy was all about. And so, as we all know, in 1959, ending 17th century and forward, where the Dalai Lama was actually not only just the spiritual leader, but the head of the government. So I think the first 6 Dalai Lamas were not head of the government, but starting in the 17th century, ending in 1959, all the Dalai Lamas were actually the government heads. And of course he went into exile into India. And the suffrage was there. I didn't know this, but the CIA was funding throughout the 60s and 70s this Tibetan government in exile, $1.6 million a year. And the Dalai Lama finally stopped it and said, no, I don't want this anymore. You're not doing this to promote our cause. You're doing this to offset your political agenda with the Chinese. And you're only doing this to pursue your Cold War with the Chinese. And so, on a point of integrity, he stopped the funding. But they started building their schools. So when I started looking at all of the information in there were these beautiful articles. And he talks on topics of world peace, sexuality, women's rights, monetary systems, and he always has just the most beautiful, brief way of making points. And when he was asked, how do you feel about women's rights? And he said, if you define somebody who protects the rights of women and call them a feminist, he said, I suppose you could call me a feminist. And on his views, when they asked him about homosexuality, he said in his 1996 book that the Buddhist religion does not support homosexuality, that it says there is only to be what they call organ and vaginal engagement between a man and a woman. And he said, but, he said, in my view, the highest virtue of the Buddhist values are do no harm. And he said, in my view, if there are two consensual adults and they do no harm to each other and they support, he said, who am I to tell them that they're wrong? And so what I loved about when I read that was, even he, with his 14 lifetimes of wisdom, took the dogma and the doctrine of Buddhism and took it to a higher level and disengaged. And isn't that what I think we're all about here in spirituality, is giving back to the one Dharma, compassion and love, and releasing ourselves from all of the creed and the rules and the dogma and the doctrine. And I love that he did that. As the spiritual leader, this is equivalent to the Pope coming out and telling the Catholic world, you can use birth control and there's nothing wrong with being of any sexual preference that you want to. Because he is, in that world, the equivalent of the Pope. And he came out and said, do no harm. And he openly said he disagreed with thousands and thousands of years of Buddhist doctrine that said it was wrong. And he said, if somebody asks me, what do I think about homosexuality? He said, I would answer, what does their partner think? And as long as their partner is okay with it, why wouldn't I be okay with it? I love the way he just brings it down to this kind of answer. And so I copied down a bunch of his quotes because they were just so loving and supportive, and yet he has just this playful, gentle sense of humor. And I remember once I saw a YouTube video where they were talking about him receiving a visitor and how he embraces every part of life. Sleeping, getting up, his meditation, his counsel, and the ceremony of eating. And he was eating once, and his ministers came in and were fussing and saying that this high government official was here to see him and was a half an hour early. And, that he had to come in and see them right away because he was on a tight schedule. And the Dalai Lama said, I'm eating. And it's not anything other than, I'm in the middle of my ceremony. This nurturing and nourishing of my body will not be disrupted by even the highest government official who's on a tight schedule. And he just looked at him and said, I'm eating. So he teaches us ceremony, the importance of everything that we do. So I want to share with you some of his quotes. And then I'm told that we're going to do a little meditation after I'm done with these quotes, if you want to, that we are going to allow your mindfulness that has been transferred to you through all the embodiments of your soul to unveil a little bit. And for you to go, I know. That's what I said when they told me that. I went, oh, really? So we're going to allow the wisdom of some of our many, many other lifetimes to have just easy and graceful access to our current mind. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Not to keep reinventing the wheel. So here's some of his beautiful quotes. All major religious traditions carry basically the same message, that is love, compassion, and forgiveness. The important thing is that they should be a part of our daily lives. Be kind whenever possible. and it is always possible. Happiness is not something ready-made. It comes from your own actions. How many times do you hear somebody say, "Oh, I just want to be happy"? And they think it's something you step into, like putting on a pair of jeans. You don't just step into it, it's something that you create within yourself by your own actions. It takes a little work. It takes a little commitment. It takes a little intention setting. It's a choice. I choose to be happy, and therefore I choose to do the things and behave in a certain way that creates my happiness. And it's not given to us by somebody else. We don't get happiness by getting a new car or getting a better paying job or starting to date somebody that seems like the answer to all of our romantic fantasies. Happiness doesn't just show up on our doorstep as something that gets handed to us. It comes from inside. I'm embellishing. I think that's what you meant. I like this one. I find hope in the darkest of days and focus in the brightest. I do not judge the universe. If you want others to be happy, practice compassion. If you want to be happy, practice compassion. Sounds like we should be practicing compassion. In the practice of tolerance, one's enemy is the best teacher. He certainly walks his talk, doesn't he? With what now is over a 50-year occupation of Tibet. It is necessary to help others, not only in our prayers, but in our daily lives. If we find we cannot help others, the least we can do is to desist from harming them. And I take that to mean that if you cannot find compassion for somebody, at least don't bad talk them, or put them down, or make it worse for them. If you can't be compassionate, at least be indifferent. It is very important to generate a good attitude, a good heart, as much as possible. From this, happiness in both the short term and the long term for both yourself and others will come. Love and compassion are necessities, not luxuries. Without them, humanity cannot survive. My religion is very simple. My religion is kindness. Old friends pass away, new friends appear. It is just like the days. An old day passes, and a new day arrives. The important thing is to make it meaningful, a meaningful friend or a meaningful day. That means being in the now, not being yesterday or tomorrow. Make each day mean something to you today. How many of you are already wondering about what you're going to do tomorrow when you go back to work, or the errands you're going to run, what you're going to do this coming week? I'm a really strong advocate of what I would call a time management system, like a task list and a calendar system of all my appointments. And the reason that I do that is it allows me to put it out of my mind. I don't have to remember to do this and remember to do that, remember what appointments I have. If it's all written down, I can dump it from looping around. It helps me be present. Our prime purpose in this life is to help others. If you can't help them, at least don't hurt them. That's kind of a repeat of the one before. Sleep is the best meditation. Sleep on it. Get some rest. Sometimes one creates a dynamic impression by saying something, and sometimes one creates as significant an impression by remaining silent. The purpose of our lives is to be happy. The roots of all goodness lie in the soil of appreciation for goodness. The ultimate authority must always rest with the individual's own reason and critical analysis. And ending with my favorite. There is no need for temples, no need for complicated philosophies. My brain and my heart are my temples. My philosophy is kindness. And that's why you always hear me in my meditations saying, the temple of light is in here. It's not this building. It's not this service. It's here. We are places of light. We are a gathering of light. This is the temple right in here. It's the temple of light. So everybody game to have some of your previous, current, concurrent, and future, because of course time isn't linear,